Good afternoon. I'm still reporting on the coup. Greg Kelly, the leader of the new Newsmax Evening News team, has come up with the true reason for all of the agent provocateur embedding by the FBI and other government agencies during the January 6th riot in 2021. Last night, Kelly built a case that the government's plan for January 6th was to encourage Trump supporters to enter the Capitol building, encouraged by the police and the fake Trump supporters, and create such a stir that the contesting of the Electoral College vote would have to be canceled before it could reach the debate stage. And that is exactly what happened. Kelly started by showing that it was legally responsible for the president to raise the alarm of possible election fraud in election 2020. Why? Because from the constitutional perspective, if not a presidential prerogative, then who among the three branches of government should be in charge?
Under Article 2 of the Constitution, the president is responsible for the execution and enforcement of the laws created by Congress, okay? And here's the important thing that they want to confuse everybody about, and they're pretty thoroughly confused. President Trump having doubts about the fairness of the 2020 election. That's not outside of his official duties. That's totally within the president's realm. He's allowed to engage in politics. He's allowed to. This is well within the scope of politics. Happens all the time. Elections are contested. He's also allowed to point out, we had that pandemic, and they rearranged the rules for the election because of the pandemic. They did that, and that's not received nearly enough attention. President Trump had his lawyers look at the Electoral Count Act of 1887. Yeah, that exists. Article 2, these things exist, and you're allowed to engage in them. It's within the official job description of the presidency. Does that make sense? You're even allowed to disagree with your vice president. Yeah, you can. You can even disagree publicly with your own vice president about what this stuff means. And you're allowed to take to Twitter. And you're allowed to say Mike Pence does not have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution. Everything that Trump did was in the line of duty, or you could call it an official act. Now, the left, they'll point out that, well, it was all a fraud because Trump knew he lost. They always say that. How do they know that he knew? Trump knew he lost.
I know that Donald Trump knew that he lost the election.
Trump knew he lost, and he kept saying that he won when he didn't.
President Trump knew from unassailable sources that his election fraud claims were false. He admitted he had lost the election.
In general, nothing this woman says can be relied upon as being close to the truth.
It doesn't matter what Norah O'Donnell says. Norah O'Donnell with the hair on CBS News, right? If she says the election's over, you can look it up. It's not in the Constitution. And Donald Trump makes up his own mind, doesn't he? He also sees things that others don't see. You remember when he met with NATO, how that went over with NATO? You see him there with his arms folded, and everyone's trying to convince him of something, and they can't. Angela Merkel has had it up to here. I think these moments are pretty amazing. He is a different type of person, and he's somewhat immune to the pressure that might be applied and others would cave to. Like, who remembers the Access Hollywood stuff? Totally mischaracterized by the mainstream and everybody else, even conservatives. They don't know what was actually said on that tape, which wasn't bragging about sexual assault. It was something totally, totally different. But we'll have that conversation another time. You remember after that? That was in October of 2016. And Republicans everywhere told him, you must drop out. You must leave this race. The only chance we have is if you give this nomination somehow to Mike Pence. Yep, all over the place. They were telling him, you can't win, you must quit this race right now. They were all wrong. Literally, all of them, which was the Republican Party. They were wrong. Trump vowed not to quit. And aren't we glad that he didn't listen to Reince Priebus or anybody like that? All right, so that takes us to what this is all about. January 6th, when Donald Trump gave that speech at the Ellipse. This is really important to understand, folks. You already know that everything he said was fine, right? Peaceful, patriotically. In America, you're allowed to contest an election. You're allowed to go all the way up to when they're counting the electoral votes. You're allowed to do that. Paul Gosar is allowed to stand up, as he did with Ted Cruz at 1:12 p.m. and object to the electoral count. That happened at 1:12 p.m. That's an important time, by the way. Because what happens? Well, they break to debate issues. Now, everybody overlooks this, what they actually talked about before everything went to hell. Here's Jim Jordan.
So what'd they do next? They changed the rules. They changed the election law, and they did it in an unconstitutional fashion. And that's what we're going to show over the next several hours of debate. The Constitution is clear, as Whip Scalise just said. State legislatures, and only state legislatures, set election law. In Arizona, the law says voter registration ends on October 5th. Democrats said, we don't care what the law says. They went to a court, got an Obama-appointed judge to extend it 18 days. No debate, as Steve talked about. No debate, no discussion, he just did it. Pennsylvania, same thing.
Know all that stuff? A lot of people don't, because a few minutes later, they had to call it all off because of what was going on with the protesters. Here's Paul Gosar, who had a lot to say about Arizona. He was just getting started. Watch what happened to him.
Over 400,000 mail-in ballots were altered, switched from President Trump to Vice President Biden, or completely erased from President Trump's totals. The proof is in the counting curves, the curves that cannot occur except with odds so rare and unlikely that winning the Mega Millions lottery is more probable. Mr. Speaker, can I have order in the chamber?
The House will be in order. The House will be in order. Okay.
You heard somebody yell in the back. There's all kinds of commotion. What's going on? There's some confusion. And then they call it a day. Capitol Police are running all over the place, and it all gets basically canceled.
Until last night, I have to admit that I didn't know this. That happened 3 years ago and was an event with monumental ramifications in United States history. I just assumed that somehow the objections were heard and then voted down by Democrats, or just ignored by the Vice President, and then Congress certified the electoral count. I had no idea that the entire backup process, which would protect us against an evil regime driving through a fake election, had been totally bypassed by a fake insurrection just outside the doors.
Without objection, the chair declares the House in recess pursuant to Clause 12B of Rule 1.
So what is Clause 12B of Rule 1? It empowers the chair to declare the House in recess in case of an immediate threat on the safety of the House.
And that was it. They were just warming up with the objections. They were just getting to the heart of the matter. What was going on? Well, yeah, there were protesters outside. Let me show you that. On January 6th, at a place called Peace Plaza, why did the Capitol Police have one police officer guarding what looks like a pretty major point of entry? There's one person there. Why? Why just one? And like we've asked many times, who was that little cop aggressively waving people in? Come right this way. A commotion will stop the objections. You see, this was all not to stop the voting, but to stop the objections to the voting. That's what they wanted. They wanted a scene, and they could call it off. Why did those police officers just let everybody come in? Why did that happen? Were they ordered to just make it a scene, or was it a wink and a nod? We don't know, because the January 6th committee did not ask these questions. And Ashley Babbitt being killed, I mean, after she got killed, Well, I mean, come on. You can't continue with the objections. If you do that, somebody else could get killed. You know, and what time was Ashley Babbitt shot, by the way? It's not too long after Paul Gosar. Yeah. After that, forget it. It wasn't going to happen. Liz Cheney, according to her book, said maybe we could get everybody to drop their objections now. She wanted everybody to drop the objections. And what did McConnell say? McConnell said that's exactly the plan. Get everyone now to stop the objections. The plan, the plan, the plan. I got questions about that plan, don't you?
So, Senator Mitch McConnell, the senior senator from Kentucky and Senate Majority Leader, the top Republican in the Senate, knew about this plan, and since he never warned us it was coming, must have agreed to it as the only way to keep Trump from returning to office. This is the truth. This is how this will be seen in American history. This is shameful and must be spread widely to try to keep something similar from happening again in this coming election. I'm still reporting from just outside the citadel of American freedom. Good day.